Hello, I am Pat Gillum-Sams, the founder and CEO of the Sister Covenant. What is the Sister Covenant? It is a platform for purposed and powerful women to empower and inspire other powerful women of color. Black women are resilient. We nurture the world, our families, our spouses, our children, our communities, the boardroom, and everything in between. But who fills our cup? I often am reminded of when we fly, we're told to put our oxygen mask on first. And that is what the Sister Covenant is all about. It's a safe space for authentic dialogue between sisters, my friends, your friends, all of our friends, coming together for a time such as this. Join me Sunday mornings, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, first, third, and fifth Sundays for the Sister Covenant, a safe space to laugh a lot, cry a little, and fill your cup. Good morning, great Sunday morning, and welcome to the Sister Covenant. Happy Black History Month, happy Valentine's Day, and happy Heart Health Month. February is amazing because it's all about you. It's all about us, and it's all about love. I am super excited. We have an amazing podcast for you for the month of February. If we don't know where we've come from, then how will we get to where we're going? We are unapologetically Black, 365, not just in the month of February. We won't be reduced to 1 month. We are shouting out loud our history 365 days of the year. Our history, our heritage, our pride, and our legacy. 365 Black. But before we get to our guests this morning, I want to invite you and I want to thank you for being on this journey with us. And I want to thank you for being a part of the Sister Circle. If you have not joined us as a part of the Sister Circle, it's really easy to do. All you do is open Facebook on your phone or your computer, search the Sister Covenant, find the Groups tab, click on the group title, The Sister Circle. Click Join Group, and your requests will be accepted shortly. That is how we will push out information to you. And as always, you can join any of these podcasts all the way back to November 1st, our first one in 2020, by going to Facebook, going to YouTube, and any of the podcast platforms, Spotify, Amazon, and Apple, to check out our podcast. I want to thank all of my sisters, those ride or die sisters for 20, 30, 40-year friends that have sowed a seed into the Sister Covenant by being either a sustaining sister or a sister's keeper. And you too can sow a seed in the Sisters Covenant so that you can help us continue to empower women all across the country, women of color. That's our information right there. Send us a note at keepers@thesistercovenant.com if you are interested in being one of our sponsors. I want to share with you our sponsors, our sustaining sisters right there on the screen. Again, my friends for some 20, 30, 40 years. I love them to the moon and back, and I appreciate them for being on this journey with me. And of course, our sisters keepers, those dear friends, Brenda Jackson, New York Times best-selling author. You will hear from her in just one moment because she is our sister for February. Of course, Melissa Fulmore Hardwick, founder of Brown Girls in the Boardroom. My dear friend, Sonia Jackson Miles, the Sister Accord. My friend, Dr. Lorraine Polite Clark, Today's Dentistry, and Sutel Dental, and a new sponsor, my dear big sis, Barbara Jones, and the Carter DePrince Jones Legacy Fund. Thank you, thank you, thank you for again helping us to empower women all across the country. Now, I want to share the PSA for February, the month of love, from best-selling author Brenda Jackson.
Hello, welcome to the month of February. I am New York Times, USA Today, best-selling author Brenda Jackson, and I love February. Why? February is the month of love. February is also my birthday month, my husband's birthday month, Black History Month, Super Bowl month. It's also President's Day month. A lot's going on in February. Such a wonderful month. But for me, more important of anything else, February is the month of love. Put more than a little love in your heart. Put a lot of love in your heart. And if you would like what I suggest, pick up a Brenda Jackson novel. If you believe in love, passion, and romance, Brenda Jackson novels are for you. There's over 15 million in print, and I am a proud sponsor of the Sisters Covenant. Thank you for joining us, and remember, February is the month of love. Spread it all around this month.
Now, it gives me pleasure to showcase here in the month of February, Black History Month, our history right here in Northeast Florida, a legacy that has been around for 119 years, the Clara White Mission. The Clara White Mission is an institution here in Jacksonville, right over in an area of downtown Jacksonville called La Villa. It was the place to be. There were stars very far and wide that would come and visit that part of our city back in the heyday. But we honor a woman that fed the needy and the least of them, Clara White. Clara White is a woman that was phenomenal for her time. And we had the pleasure of sitting down and talking with the CEO of the Clara White Mission, Jacoby Pittman, as well as visiting the museum. It's such a treasure right here in Jacksonville, and I want to share it with all of you. Jacoby is a true pioneer woman in her own right. She's a proud native of Jacksonville, Florida, and she is an advocate, a devoted advocate for the advancement of services for veterans, advocacy, and innovative community development to, again, further the legacy that was started by Clara White and then Eartha White, her daughter. So I want to share a conversation with you that I had just this earlier this week with Jacoby. I am over the moon excited to be in this beautiful space and to welcome my dear friend and Sora, Jacoby Pittman, to the platform. Hello, beautiful.
Hey, how are you?
How are you, my dear?
Oh, having a fabulous day.
I'm sure you are. I'm sure you have lots of roads to travel before your head hits your pillow.
Absolutely, you know it because you do the same thing, right?
Well, the
We are in
impact,
the same space.
we are in the same space, but you do it so gracefully. And I thank you. I thank you for your graciousness and your staff for welcoming me here to the Clara White Mission. I'm actually in your space.
Absolutely, you're in the museum today, right?
I am in the museum talking
Good.
to the fabulous Andonica Toller.
Well, you're
So
in for a treat.
we are, my audience certainly is. So I couldn't leave and
Sure.
couldn't get started without talking to you, Jacoby. So tell
Mhm.
us, the Clara White Mission. How long have you been with the Clara White Mission? And
So
then
I've been with the Clara White Mission for 30 years, carrying on the legacy of Dr. Eartha M. White. I must say this is not a job. It's a passion because I grew up not far from here, and to be able to carry on the services that our founder started, Dr. M. White, who named the facility after her mother, Clara White. And so to be able to help people who need a hand up and not a handout, it is an opportunity for me and to share the great work that Dr. White has done in the community and how we are still impacting lives here on the corner of Broad and Ashley Street. And so I'm excited to share with you some of the programs that she started, which is the heart and soul of the organization, providing meals to the homeless. And we are still doing that. When I started here 30 years ago, we were only serving about 100 and 125 people, but that have grown from 5 days a week to 7 days a week serving the homeless here at the Clara White Mission, where we see that many people who also not need just a good meal, Pat, but an opportunity for an opportunity to change their lives. So we provide housing, transitional housing. We also have an apartment complex for them. We have a training program in culinary arts, janitorial, environmental services. And our new project is a agricultural program at the White Harvest Farms, which is 10 and a half acres. It's an organic farm in Northwest Jacksonville.
So, Jacoby, 119 years, right?
Yes,
And
yes,
just last year, we had a fabulous and very successful fundraiser, the
absolutely.
Legacy on
Yes.
Ashley Street.
Mhm,
So today, as you just mentioned, all of what the Clear White Mission stands for, and we didn't even
mhm,
talk about the veterans piece to that, and
absolutely.
the janitorial piece to that, and the
Mhm.
culinary arts academy or school, that piece to that. Tell us, where do you see the Clara White Mission going over the next 100 years? And how integral or relevant do you feel that it still is in this community right here on Ashley Street?
Well, Pat, first of all, I'm glad you asked that question, but I must thank you for chairing our legacy event last year that we needed $100,000, and we were able to raise that in a 4-month period of time. And so I want to say thank you for standing down for us and in place to make sure that we met our goal. One, the funding that we raised was to basically carry on the programs that we have. And that was one of the first programs that our founders started, was our feeding program. And everything that we are doing is relevant to what she started. It's just 100 and so plus years later. Poor people have been with us since the beginning of time, and they will be with us to the end of time. But what we have been able to do was diversify our organization to include programs that can help people change their lives, get their lives back. And so, again, thinking when I came here 30 years ago, we did not have any of the training programs in place. And with that number of people coming to the Clara White Mission, I wanted them to not only come here for a meal, but an opportunity to revolutionize their life, get their life back, be a taxpayer in the community. And so what I was able to do was attract those individuals from our feeding program. And we were able, the first program we had, and let me just say this, over half of the clients that came to have a meal at the Clara White Mission, over 60% of them were homeless veterans. And that's what led to the veteran programs that we had. A lot of men and women had served our country and came back here, and their life had changed. It was different. There was a lot of mental illness that several of our veterans were experiencing, and they lost their family. They pretty much lost their way. So I remember that our founder had programs specifically for veterans who lived on the streets. So what we did was reactivated that program and developed a comprehensive housing program that led to essential supported services such as case management, NA and AA programs. We provided them opportunities to enroll in the janitorial and environmental class, as well as the culinary class. And both of those programs are licensed by the Department of Education. So when those individuals graduate from our program, they can work anywhere in the United States. We not only had those programs available, but we also had a cafe where we partnered with St. John's Episcopal Church. And we ran that program. It was called Clara's at the Cathedral. And we ran that program for about 8 years until COVID came. And unfortunately, we had to temporarily suspend that program. But now we have the White Harvest Farm, which are veterans who live with us. We not only have short-term housing for them at the Clara White Mission, but we also have an apartment complex across the street from the Clara White Mission, which the VA Outreach Services is located on the first floor. So any veteran that receives services from here or at our apartment complex and on the street, they can go there for services, an opportunity. If they had not applied for their benefits, they're able to get their benefits as well. So when you come to the Clara White Mission, it's a one-stop shop with comprehensive services that are veterans and individuals who are homeless or low income. We can provide services to them as well.
Jacoby, much like many cities in the country, the homeless population is at high proportion. And I'm sure COVID, you just mentioned, it didn't help with that situation. For those folks that are loyal watchers of the Sister Covenant, the Clara White Mission is in the heart of downtown.
It is. It is.
Tell us about what you see on a day-to-day basis and how COVID may have played a part in what we see now with our homeless population here in Jacksonville.
Absolutely. Well, where we're located is in the heart of the historical La Villa community. It was the place to go back in the day. They used to call it Uptown. And so, it's kind of like Bourbon Street in New Orleans. And, over the years, resources had not been put in this particular area until the last 5 years or so. But there were 4 African-American businesses that are still in operations. But unfortunately, like you said, COVID just kind of deterred everything, put everything on a halt. But the Clara White Mission, even during COVID, we provided meals to the homeless. We never closed down during that time. And it was impactful to our organization as well, because I lost my head chef. And not only that, I had COVID myself, and I had some very serious issues that I almost lost my life as well. But God spared my life, and I'm able to continue the work that I love so well here at the Clara White Mission, and to continue the history. The history that we have in this area is very impactful, and we want to make sure, as the city develop this area, that Clara White Mission and other historical institutions in this area are still able to operate. And what you will hear later on today with Adonica, she will give you a deep dive in the history and how the Clara White Mission played an important segment in our community, and it still is today. So, as we develop new initiatives and reactivate initiatives that Dr. White started, we need to make sure that we continue developing new resources to keep us in operations, so we can celebrate another 119 years.
Jacoby, we know that you have a signature event that the Clara White Mission looks forward to, and we all here in Northeast Florida look forward to, Miracle on Ashley Street. Is that coming back this year?
Coming back, and I wanted to make one other point, Pat, because you asked me about housing, and I must address this. Right now there is a housing crisis where people are being priced out of their homes. They're being priced out of being in apartments. And, one of the things that I do to help is to identify developers that would be interested in developing affordable housing in areas that are underserved in our community. And we're looking at providing incentives for them to develop housing in our community. There are plenty of houses in La Villa right now that we're proud of, but there are very few that have affordable housing that could address the middle kind of market. We have apartments for the low, and we have apartments for the higher income, but very little housing for the middle class individuals who are interested in obtaining affordable housing and market rate apartments in areas and historical areas in the community. So I just wanted to share a little bit about that. And as we go to the Miracle on Ashley Street, so proud of the Miracle on Ashley Street because it's one of our signature fundraisers that we can bring the community together to address homelessness in our community, where we have anywhere from the mayor of the city of Jacksonville to the businesses here who support us in serving meals to the homeless under a big white tent next to the Clara White Mission. And we have had this event for 28 years, and we're getting ready to celebrate 29 years at this coming May, the last Friday in May of this year. And of course, if you all are interested in being one of our celebrity servers, and Pat, I think have you had an opportunity to be one of our celebrity servers?
I have. And
yeah.
not just at that event, but you partner with a lot of organizations from
I do. We have over
from churches to the Divine Nine. You do
absolutely. We usually have over 150 community leaders and organizations who have bought into the signature events, not only just the Miracle on Ashley Street, but we have Feed the City and December to Remember. And all of these events are an opportunity for you to get your families involved. It's a one-stop shop. The kids who are graduating from high school, I remember your kids used to come here and they can get their community service hours. And, the Clara White Mission, and I would tell you the name Eartha means storehouse to all. And I think over the years, she has definitely lived up to that name to ensure that services for the community will forever go on to another 119 years.
Well, Jacoby, what you're saying and what you live out loud are synonymous. What you have done over your 30 years in continuing the legacy of Eartha M. White, who continued the legacy of her dear mother.
She does.
Clara White. We want to make that distinct.
Absolutely. So it's a mother and daughter. So Eartha is the daughter and Clara is the mother. And I tell you, Pat, when I came here, our operational budget was $295,000. And at that time, we only had our feeding program, but fast forwarded, this organization is operating at $3.1 million. We have a board who is very supportive of our efforts and to continue our legacy and having the community all in what we do. And I can't wait. I talked a little bit about our farm, which is on the northwest side that Miss White started as well, which was one of the first areas in the community that she leased space to African-American farmers. And so we're getting ready to start that again. We were able to get some resources from the city of Jacksonville, $1.5 million to build a training center and farmers market as well. And then, of course, former Congressman Al Lawson gave us $2 million to complete the rest of the capital plans that we wanted to have at the White Harvest Farm. We're going to redo Mrs. White's home that she lived in. We're going to do a community garden. We're going to put up a bridge. We're looking at taking our services from the Clara White Mission out to the Moncrief area that we're excited about to share, because we know that there is a real need out in that food desert community.
Jacoby, Thank you, thank you, thank you. And we will most certainly make sure our audience gets all the information on
Oh,
how they
please,
support
please.
the Clara White Mission. And as you know, the Sister Covenant is all across the country. So
Yes,
folks can support you even if they don't live in Northeast Florida.
absolutely. Absolutely. They can go onto our website, which is www.clarawhitemission.org, and give you all of that information. But before we leave, I like to share the philosophy that I live by each and every day. And I hope you all would join me in living that same philosophy. And it says, do all the good you can in all the ways you can for all the people you can and all the places you can while you can.
Amen. Amen. And you do just that, Jacoby. So we thank you for all that you do through the mission, through the city council as one of our city council women, and
Yes.
through all of your passions for this community. Thank you, and God bless you. And I can't wait to see the museum.
Okay. All right. Thanks for having me and enjoy.
Bye.
Bye. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Can you see me? Oh.
Beautiful, beautiful soul who has done an amazing work here at the Clara White Mission. So now we are in for a treat. We are going to see the museum. One of Jacoby's mantras is go out of your comfort zone to make a difference. And she does just that every single day in this community through her efforts through the Clara White Mission, and as she is a city council woman making a difference and an impact in this community. Now, it gives me pleasure to introduce another phenomenal woman, Andonica Toller. Andonica is the director of the museum at the Clara White Mission. Now, Andonica is no stranger to the Sister Covenant, as we have had her on for the Ritz La Villa Museum in past times. But she recently joined the Clara White Mission, and she'll tell you just why she decided some 22 years later to come back to her roots. So help me welcome into the Sister Covenant studio, Andonica Toller. Andonica, welcome, my dear, to the Sister Covenant. So you're no stranger to the Sister Covenant. We've seen you before.
Yes.
With the Ritz La Villa Museum.
Correct.
And now you're with the Clara White Mission.
Yes.
That's a dream come true. Tell us, you were sharing with me this afternoon how you really, the Clara White Mission was really the impetus, if you will, for your journey into history and archives. So tell us about that.
So correct. So Eartha White was my subject in college and grad school. And I'll tell you, she had not been taught in school. So I never learned of her in school, but I was aware of her because the church I attended would always go to her nursing home, and we would do things with the residents there. So I heard her name, but no one really told me how dynamic she was. And so she was my subject in grad school, and actually the same year that Jacoby Pittman started here. In fact, she probably
What year was that?
1993.
Okay.
So she's been here 30 years, coming on 30 years. She had just been here a couple of months, and I come bopping in. I'm all excited because I had done research on Eartha White, and her mission is still downtown. So I said, I'm going to go and volunteer. I'm going to learn about it. And that's how I did. I started that. And if you see how beautiful this place is now, it was not that gorgeous at all. I'm just telling you. And so the third floor where my offices are now, it was the dungeon. And I was nosy, so I would plunder around. And I said, oh, look what I found. And I was finding all these historic documents. But the other staff is, what you doing up there? It's scary up there. And I would come down, I'd be dusty, dirty, and all these beautiful historic documents, originals, I was discovering them. And I would say, Jacoby, I need to get this. And she's like, huh? Well, okay. And she didn't know. I mean, she'll tell you she had no idea. And she just because I said I needed it, she said, well, get what you need. And that's what it was. And so that's how it started. And so in the meantime, the development of the Ritz Theater and Museum was coming into pass, and the opportunity came for me to go there, and I did that. And so 22 years later, I'm back. And what's beautiful is I had a gift for this. I'm just telling you, because what I was doing here, I didn't really know the museum world and what you're supposed to do, but I was doing it here when I was a student. But when I went off to the Ritz Museum and I started learning, I was on point. So now I'm back to really establish the Eartha M. White Historical Museum, which has been around since the early 1930s. It is the oldest museum in the city of Jacksonville, started by this dynamic woman. It was founded during the Depression. So while she's feeding people who are losing their homes, have nothing to eat, she says, okay, you need to have your mind fed as well. There's this beautiful letter between her and Abraham Lincoln Lewis where he says, I agree with you, Eartha. There needs to be a museum that celebrates Negro contributions. That letter is dated 1930. And so she is just the idea that she even understood that should exist in a time when people are focusing on just eating and trying to find a job is an amazing experience. So that's how Eartha White, as always, she helped me kick off my career as a historian. I always loved history as a child, so she really helped me take that step. And so I am a history par excellence in Jacksonville.
Yes, you are.
I am.
Yes,
Honestly, I am highly respected for my knowledge and sharing of the stories. And it's to me a calling. It's not a job. So, Eartha White is important to me in that regard. And then I found out my grandfather used to help her. It was destined. So anyway.
So Andonica, set it up for us. And we just talked with Jacoby. So I want our audience, especially those folks that don't live here in Jacksonville and don't understand where we are, I want them to clearly understand and get it. The time that we were in, the fact that Clara White is the mother, and when she was born, and what her calling was, and where she came from as a slave, and where that started, and then how Eartha came along. So set all of that up for us.
All right. So Clara White, and people do mix them up, but Clara White was the former slave on the Harrison plantation on Amelia Island. She was the catalyst to all this legacy. Even as a slave, she had a history and legacy of helping and serving people. She was a nurse and a cook for the South Carolina volunteer colored troops when they came to Jacksonville and to Florida. We deduced that she probably just walked off the plantation. So she would have been she was born it's said that she was born in 1845. So she would have been 17 or 18, and she walked off the plantation more than likely. She probably wasn't freed, but when the Union soldiers came in the region, she probably just walked on off and joined the troops. That is where she met her husband, Lafayette White, and they married later on. But she started there, and even that truth and this great truth or information we found out recently is that Harriet Tubman was in this area doing spy work. And the South Carolina 33rd was the troop of soldiers who were helping her. So the idea that, Clara probably knew Harriet Tubman is another thing that the local historians, we're just we're excited about that, but we want to be able to confirm that. But it is evident she was in this area doing spy work. And so when the war ended, Lafayette and Clara settled in an area called Hansontown. So the Clara White Mission is located in La Villa. And literally, if you go across the street, is Hansontown. So for those of you who are in Jacksonville and you know what I'm talking about, so you know where FSCJ campus is, all the way to Johnny Ford Elementary, all the way back toward Eden Campus, Bethel, Eden Campus, the history health department, and right there, right before those 2-story buildings, that was Hansontown. All that territory, all the old Blodgett homes. Those of you who know what Blodgett homes, the infamous Blodgett homes, that was Hansontown. Significant. Hansontown was founded by a Black doctor in the Civil War, Daniel Hanson. He was part of the 34th Infantry, which also worked with Harriet Tubman. So they would have known each other. And the White, Clara and Lafayette purchased property, and they stayed on Eagle Street. And you remember Bethel and that land where people park right on the other side of Bethel. That is where the house was, in that area. And so from that house, Clara continued to feed people soup, help find them clothes, help find them a job. When Eartha came along, whom she was adopted by the Whites, she grew up in a house that served people. So she always saw her mother helping and serving people. When Eartha White was in school and there was a yellow fever here, after the war, Clara started working on the Clyde shipping lines as a stewardess. And every summer she would take Eartha. Well, one school year she couldn't come back because it was a yellow fever. So Eartha White grew up part of her life up in New York, where she saw the mission system, which is you have this one structure that houses all your activities, what you do in serving the community. And really the Clara White Mission is only one of 3 missions in the South. And so Eartha saw that, came back after she had grown up and traveled the world as an opera singer. She came home and she took the work that her mother was doing. Her mother continued to serve and help people. Eartha White joined in, became part of the Spanish-American War, helping soldiers. And she took what her mother started and started organizing it. By 1904, the Clara White Mission was an official thing. Dr. Eartha White named the Clara White Mission before her mother died in 1920. So Clara saw that her daughter had put her work together in some organization. And those ladies continue to impact not just Jacksonville, but the state and nationally. So Clara started it. This woman who never learned to read and write, but she had just as much influence as Eartha. The mayors and the governors knew her name just like they knew Eartha.
So I'm trying to really wrap my brain around all of that. So we have a woman who is a slave, who somehow is freed from her bondage of slavery, and she begins to feed the homeless. So that progresses, and then she has a child by adoption, and that child goes on, and it sounds as though she was very entrepreneurial. Her spirit was entrepreneurial, because it wasn't just feeding the homeless. That would have been enough. But tell us about everything else that's in this museum.
Well, we don't have enough time, but I'll give you a little bit. Okay. So in the meantime, while they are serving people, Eartha White received 2 honorary degrees. One is a law degree and one is a humanitarian degree.
From where?
So the law degree is from Edward Waters University, 1961. and the other one's humanities from what is now Florida Memorial University. And she received that one in 1936. And so while that is happening, Eartha White and some Black members of this community are actually founding members of the National Negro Business League with Booker T. Washington. So Eartha White ended up having a laundry service. She was a census taker. She had an employment agency. She had an adoption agency. She ran a mercy hospital. She had a tuberculosis home. She had a home for unwed mothers. She had a home for girls, a home for boys, a home for drunks. She had a department store. She had a grocery store. She established the farm, and Jacoby Pittman mentioned that to you, and on and on and on. And so while she's continuing to serve the poor and finding them jobs, she's also an advisor to the presidents of the United States, to the governors, to the mayors. One of our mayors said, he's now deceased, a mayor, Hans Tansler, he said, I hated to see her come because I knew I was going to give her what she wanted. So he would try to tell her no. And that was the common thread that I heard from people, is like, you could not tell her no. It was hard to tell her no because she, as the children say today, she had the receipts. She did the work, and the resources from her businesses, she would take that money, invest it into her properties, invest it to these projects. And her credibility was such that she could she worked across the race line, the class line, culture line, you name it. When you find that there is a woman in the early 1900s who is an advisor to the President of the United States on military affairs, women are not even allowed to be in the military. You have this Black woman who is usually, in many cases, she was the only Black person, the only woman, and you're advising the President of the United States on how to treat the military. So this, we're just trying to figure out, and maybe we won't, but she was definitely born and anointed to do what she did, because all the different things, even now people applaud the mission for all the things that we're doing, but in truth, we're not even doing 1% of what Miss White did while she was alive. We don't have a boys' home, we don't have a girls' home, et cetera, et cetera. And we don't have businesses that we're running at the same time while we're advising presidents and other dignitaries. And so, amazing life.
So we are in, at this time, you're talking about the segregated South.
Correct.
We're in the segregated South. Correct. How would one little Black woman, colored,
right,
amass all of this property and the respect of the community, yes, of the majority community? Mm-hmm. How?
She just was special, and you made a point. She was a major landowner, to the point that the Clara White Mission still owns some property that she bought. So she was a major landowner, a sharp businesswoman. She was politically active. The anti-lynching law was finally signed last year. Eartha White, Dr. Eartha White, was a major campaigning for that law to come into pass. One great story about her during the 1920 election, when women had the right to vote, there were a lot of things done to discourage women from voting and Black people from voting. Ocoee massacre in Ocoee was happening at the same time here. The Ku Klux Klan was marching downtown Jacksonville to discourage Black people from voting and women from voting. And Miss Under 5 Foot, Miss Dr. White, is out getting names from people who have been intimidated, getting their names. And when she wasn't doing that, she was passing out lemonade to encourage them to stay refreshed, to stay in line and vote. And it was so interesting because there was something presented by someone to, you can't do things like that now.
That's right.
And you know what? Even if it had passed and it was happening now, Ms. White was still done it. And so being bold enough to still seek out the people who had been denied their right to vote, knowing the Klan is out and about trying to intimidate, and you don't care about that. You're trying to make sure everyone has the right to vote, and then you're passing out lemonade to keep them refreshed. And so that's a special person. I mean, we talk about being bold and bad and all that stuff, but she just did the work. And she was tiny. She was not even 5 feet tall. And many people talk that when she got older and she was the old lady, she worked that grandma thing that you really could not deny her. And she was sharp until the time of her death at 97. She was still working. She was still sharp.
So you are now here.
I'm now here
as the museum director.
Yes.
And just in the short time that you've been here, what all have you done to make this museum a living legacy to both Eartha M. White and, of course, her mother, Clara?
So one thing that, and I want to address too, that in the past there have been efforts to, in fact, there was these wonderful group of ladies who had been some are still around, but most of them have now deceased, who were my mentors moving forward, who in the 70s had made it official and had it registered with the state. So that's where the Historical Museum Incorporated comes in. Because initially, Miss White, it was more of her collecting the furniture, collecting the information. It wasn't a museum in how we see a museum now. But what I am doing now, along with my assistant Lydia Stewart, of whom I work with at the Ritz as well, what we're doing is now, this is Eartha White, Dr. White's story. This is Clara White Mission stories. And part of the story is the museum and her insight that there needed to be something that celebrated the accomplishments of African Americans. And so what we initially did, this parlor we're in, and for, on the second floor of the Clara White Mission, Miss White did live here or stayed here because when she started collecting, it overtook her house. So she moved here. And really, she had a bed wherever, any of her institutions, she had a bed because she may end up anywhere at night. So, but she lived here, and so what you see now is you're going to see the bedroom she slept in. You're going to see the guest room, and so there have been some iconic figures that have walked through these doors. Dr. Martin Luther King, Zora Neale Hurston. Oh gosh, and someone named Viola Muse, who you don't know, but you will learn because we're working on telling her story. And there was a gentleman named Stetson Kennedy. So those of you who don't know, Stetson Kennedy infiltrated the Ku Klux Klan in the 30s, and he exposed them. And so, and he was a little, somebody, those little short people that has a little oomph to them. And he infiltrated the Klan and exposed them. And he was an advocate for civil rights. So Ray Charles graced this place. And so and Ray Charles wrote a book about his life. And there's a whole chapter on Jacksonville. And he talks about Miss White and the Clara White Mission and the role they played in his career. So I'm telling you this, and the idea that this woman is not talked about in our local school system is a crime.
It's a travesty.
It's a crime.
It's a travesty.
And so, but there that goes, and it's our responsibility to tell our story. This dynamic woman who has influenced so many people. When Miss White died in 1974, her house that had her things, it was robbed. It had dishes, it had china. It was really a showcase, and even just for the collecting of the things that she had. And so some things came to the mission, and others went to the University of North Florida, the archives there. And to this day, their things went to her 1975. She died in 1974. From there to now, it is the most used collection of all the other collections they have. they say no collection comes close. That there are people from Italy, other foreign countries, all across the United States that seek out Miss White's collection to get valuable information. And so I had the pleasure and honor to find a lot of historic documents that we'll be working on inventorying. And I tell you, there are some real pieces, like I know they're gems. And so the idea that we don't hear about this woman and her accomplishments, I mean, you have no excuse about achieving, whether you're short, black, woman, no money.
That's right.
You have no excuse. Even at age 87, Miss White said, I need a better hospital for her Mercy Hospital. 87, she was 90, she had this beautiful red brick nursing home, the largest nursing home that employed Black people in the state of Florida to this day. When you're 87 and decide, I need a new building. And because of her credibility, she went down. We had a Barnett Bank here. She just went down to Barnett Bank, told them what they wanted. They gave her a $300,000 check.
And what year was this?
This is, okay, so it opened in 67, so it had to be 65. I mean, this is
$300,000 in 1965 is like $3 million
yes, that's
today.
A lot of money.
Yeah.
It was top of the line. When she was there for the dedication, she was 90 years old. Beautiful hat. She was known for her hats. Senator Charles Bennett was in DC and said, hey, there's this wonderful woman in Jacksonville that she wants to build this home, and I think we should give her some federal money, and they did.
Well, yeah. Adonica, we've toured. We have all of these beautiful pictures, still pictures that we're sharing with our audience. And how would you invite the community that is here in Jacksonville that may not have had an opportunity to come and see the mission and, of course, the museum? How would you invite them in, and how would you invite folks from all around the country to make this a destination?
So you can contact me at museum@clarawhitemission.org, one word, and because they're by appointment. Because right now it's just Lydia and myself, but we're working on increasing the staff, and that's what our main goal is to lay that foundation so that this museum does not go back into obscurity. When a number of people, when I tell them where they are, they say, well, where is that? That's going to change and real quick. And so we have found, so you can do that. You also can reach me at 904-354-4162. My extension is 1143. And so schedule an appointment. You have some research you're doing. And what's beautiful, we have a partnership with the University of North Florida. They actually recognize that they know that the collection that they have comes from Miss White's museum. And so we are partnering to figure out a better way to inventory and catalog her collection. And so this is really, for me as a historian, I love it. I'm in my element. And the fact that I'm helping to lay the foundation so this museum can go to the next level and not go in obscurity anymore. And because I know that this can be a resource, just as this place is a resource for feeding people in their belly, this place can be feeding people in their mind because of the people that Dr. White knew. I mean, presidents and Booker T. Washington,
Mary McLeod,
Dr. Bethune. She and Dr. Bethune were close friends, and they worked on many projects together. As a matter of fact, the Black women of Florida were very powerful, and I believe that my mentor believes that the Black women of Florida and the work that they did helped catapult Dr. Bethune to where she was in being important in Washington, D.C. There are institutions still existing today that those Black women established in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. They're still in operation today. And so you don't hear those stories. And these women were not jealous of each other. They weren't fighting each other. You need me where? Okay, I got you. Okay. And then they go back and just do their thing. And so the legacy of us as a people, we have to do a better job of telling our own story, but we also have to want to know our story. You'll be surprised at who don't want to know, or because the only thing that you usually see about us is the negative. You see slavery. Okay, slavery, we were that, but we were before slavery. And even here in slavery, there were people right here in Jacksonville who were very wealthy, Black people who were advocates trying to end slavery. So we have to go in and decolonize our thinking about who we are and what we represent. Because even in slavery, you had a Harriet Tubman and you had a Nat Turner. So we have to go
and on. And
we just know about those two, but there's others.
Yeah.
And so we have to go in and decolonize and retrain our brains to recognize, because how is this woman? I mean, I say, Donica, you have no excuse, because you're doing the work of a woman that in an era where she should not have been doing anything. She's a woman. She's in the South. She's Black. All the things that society says that are strikes. And we're sitting in her institution that has served the community of 119. Now, this has been here 119, but the work is older, because we're talking about the Civil War work. And her farm is being revived, and her serving the veterans is being revived, and economic development programs being revived. And so, Donica, you have no excuse. You have a woman that when everything was against her, and you can't even keep up with what she did. We're still discovering things. So this is a great for encouraging me to move forward and what I should be doing with my life, but also letting know that there were some really powerful, beautiful people that laid the foundation for us, and we are without excuse for our accomplishments. We don't have an excuse. I mean, knowing that somebody could hang you anytime, but you still do the work. Yeah, I mean, we have some great heritage. We have some great legacy for us to move forward.
Well, we know we're in Black History Month, but Black history isn't relegated to a month.
No, it's not.
It's 365.
It's 365.
So that's why this institution and other institutions like the Ritz, La Villa, and all around this country, as we told folks last year when you came on the Sister Covenant, find out what's near you in
absolutely.
Your town, your city, your state, and make it a destination. Take your children, because your young people are going to be our future. But if they don't know where they came from, they don't know the greatness of people like Clara White and Eartha M. White and all the kings and queens that we come from.
Absolutely.
Then they won't know, and all they will see is what's on TV, the brutal murders of young African American men.
And take this, Clara never learned to read and write. She never learned
her mother.
Eartha's mother, Clara. Now, Eartha was educated. She's a scholar. She was a scholar. She went to college, all of that. So just think what someone who didn't know how to read and write, but they had a heart to serve. And her name is still, Pat, I don't know of anybody in Jacksonville history that has the legacy of these two women.
Right.
Nobody.
And not just the legacy, but you said it earlier, the respect across the community.
Correct.
Across the community that they both have, but at the time of which they lived.
You can walk into the mayor's office. Now, you know it, during segregated times, you can't go to the front door or anything. Eartha White used to go to the front door, and she never got in trouble.
Well, she was friends with Miss Comer.
She was Comer. She was friends with Comer, Nina Comer,
of the Comer Museum.
Of the Comer Museum and Gardens. And just And again, her museum is older than that one, and she would have been inspired by that. Just the people she knew and how she knew to serve and help people out. It's just amazing.
So cost will be on the website.
Yes.
Groups can come
Yes.
and they can get in touch with you. And we're going to, again, put that up on how.
And not only volunteer for the museum, but if you want to volunteer with vets, and they didn't talk about it much, but there's a mental health aspect to it.
Right.
Housing, Jacoby talked about that. Housing, they get their own place, and they make sure they set them up, make sure they have bed sheets, towels, everything. It's amazing, and the respect and joy that they have. And some of the veterans helped me with the museum, and they're like, I want to learn how to. So they come and learn, so they could give a tour and share with everyone.
It's the true aspect of transforming lives. Not it's what the Bible speaks of. You teach a man how to fish, and he can feed nations
and nations, absolutely,
and feed nations. This intimate conversation, hopefully you've enjoyed it as much as I have enjoyed being in this hollow space. But enjoy all of the pictures, the still pictures, and the treat that we had to go into Miss White's, Dr. White's bedroom.
Right.
Just enjoy with her hats, her beautiful frocks, and her beautiful hats. So, and Donica, we will follow you to the moon and back. So don't think
be on the lookout. Okay. Be on the lookout. You're going to hear more about the museum. There's so many people who want to partner with us to do projects to elevate Dr. White. So be on the lookout. So when you hear Dr. Eartha M. White, you heard it here, and just get ready. And hey, if you have any information, if you have your parent or great grandmother mentioned Dr. White or Florida or the Clara White Mission, let us know, because we have learned she was worldwide.
Well, my husband calls her godmom. So I'm sure most people in Jacksonville that grew up here calls her godmom. So she was godmom to the community.
She was. She was.
Well, thank you, my friend.
Thank you for following me.
I always will.
This is my friend.
Well, thank you for coming.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
And come back.
Oh, we will. We sure will. Happy Black History Month.
Thank you. Wow. Just phenomenal. I oftentimes say, if we don't know our history, we don't know how to chart the course to the future and where we're going. So I invite all of our listeners to check out jewels in your community, like the Clara White Mission, like the Ritz La Villa Museum. These are jewels right in our community. And if we can focus on our history and how great a people we are, then we can overcome anything, all of the obstacles that are put in front of us. I invite anyone to come to Jacksonville and tour this jewel in our community. So, Black History Month, our history, our heritage, our pride and legacy, unapologetically Black, 365 days of the year. My sisters, as always, be safe, be vigilant, take care of yourself and all those you love and your community. Be bold, be brilliant, be brave. You're all so, so very blessed. Thank you for joining us. Be blessed.